This conference will now be recorded.
Well, heck yeah, it
Okay,
will.
good morning, everybody. As Carol has already pointed out to us, this is 316, as in the scripture and the van parked outside her house. So good to have you guys here for the March 16th edition. I'm so excited about what we're going to talk about. I got some thoughts I want to share with you. But first, before we do that, let's just go open mic and say, how are things going for you? Carol gave me a little bit of a preview about her business, but why don't you just kind of share with everybody what's happening, Carol?
So it's been a busy week for me. I had a client that had called me about 2 weeks ago asking me to come by and do a listing appointment with them in the Woodlands. I did that, and then they wanted to list their lot that they have in Glenmont Estates, and I did that on Friday, and it sold on Saturday morning. And then they purchased the house up in Bonterra, and then I actually had a house that I've had on the market for about 8 months go under contract last night. So I'm just really excited. It's been a great week.
Okay, all of that going on, and she's here on coaching call this morning. That's pretty outstanding, and probably should not be terribly surprising. It's the people who get things done, who are successful, who take time to sharpen the saw. So glad you're here with your big old saw, Carol.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else? What's going on in your business? Kathy, Annie, Mandy, Rochelle, Tom, or Kevin? Who wants to be first? No fighting over it.
Oh, this is Tom. All I can say is that I believe it's starting to pick up a little bit, which is
Good.
a nice change from the beginning of the year. Uh, got a listing
Yeah.
coming up in a month, and got two buyers, actually two listings and a buyer that's active right now. So it was better than it was in January.
Tom, you shared something like that last time we met in the training room, and I got to tell you, it does my heart good. I love to see people who get in this business and struggle to get traction, but hang in there, keep plugging, keep trying, keep investing, keep learning, and then suddenly, kind of like out of left field, stuff just starts to come together. It just falls into place. We talked about Blythe on this call last week, starting her third year, and no, it doesn't take 3 years to be successful, but in her third year, it's like a wave of business that has just come over here. She was in the game first year, second year, but all those seeds she planted, whew, they're really coming out now. That's so
I,
awesome. All
I
right,
was going to
anybody else
say
want to jump in here?
I
Yeah,
wanted to say
Tom.
one more thing. At the 2 year break, a new real estate agent has to decide: am I going to put another $500 into training and renew your license at 2 years? And I got, if you had a slow first year and not a good second year start, you're flipping that coin. Am I going to
Yeah.
spend more money and time or not? And I'm spending money for mine. But kind of because if I don't, the listing will come due when my license is coming due. So I better get something to come quick. But, but thank you.
Okay, good reasoning there, Tom. All right. Anybody else? I won't push it, but I don't want to. I want to shut
I
you
did
down if
want
you
to
got
share
something you
one
want to
other
share.
thing.
Yeah, go ahead,
Um,
Carol.
I did want to share one other thing. I started in January reading the 12-week year, and
Yes.
I've been following that, and that's actually given me a lot of success so far this year. I've started out the year really, really good and strong, and I don't even know where it all came from. It just started happening, and I was just like, okay, this is just crazy. So I highly recommend the book. I highly recommend the program. I saw that Ann Jurgensen just put out an email yesterday or a message yesterday on Facebook about that. And if
Yes.
you are wanting to, yes, that book right there. And if you can get the workbook as well, it's really worth it. It's really worth it. I would highly recommend it.
So I'm going to send out an announcement to all agents today about that. We just decided on this yesterday. She's going to launch on Monday. I mean, she's ready to get after it. And what she's going to do is combine the lessons of ninja selling with 12-week year. She's going to compress ninja selling into a 12-week push. So boy, I don't know if it gets more exciting than that. So that'll
Yeah,
kick
that's
off
pretty good.
Monday morning. There you go, kaboom.
Yeah.
Uh, 9 o'clock right here, Loft Training Room Spring Campus. Okay. All right. I'm going to take the mic back here for a moment and share a book with you that's been on my shelf and in my heart for 10 years. I bought this book. Where was it? April 19th, 2013. So coming up on 10 years, I've had this little baby. It's called Thou Shall Prosper by Rabbi Daniel Lapin. And it's a really cool guy. He's a rabbi in Los Angeles, California, but he's also a businessman. We call that being bivocational. And I kind of view myself that same way. I kind of make my living here, and then I spend my volunteer hours in ministry. But he actually got paid on both places, so he is a little sharper guy than I am. But he wrote this book, which is just absolutely amazing. It is so deep and insightful. And what he does is take Hebrew wisdom, ancient Hebrew wisdom, distilled in the 613 commandments found in the Old Testament, which are summarized in the Big Ten, what we think of as the Ten Commandments. That's just the summary of the whole thing. And he talks about how those Ten Commandments show us how to live wisely, how to prosper, how to be blessed, and how to be a blessing. But he makes it so practical and has so many great stories and illustrations from people that you've heard of, and very common people that you know in your own life as well. He really does a great job. In fact, if I do another book club edition myself, this is the book that I'm going to use. And I wanted to just kind of roll through what he has called the 10 commandments for making money. Okay. So if that sounds very worldly and undignified, wait for it. Here goes. The first commandment is believe in the dignity and morality of business. Think about that. It's okay to make money. And this is a very Hebrew thing. It's a Jewish thing. And, we associate the Jews with being whizzes in business and finance. And interestingly, in the introduction to this book, he goes into great detail dispelling myths about the Jewish people and why they've had such success through all generations for centuries, why they have risen to the top in every profession. Things like, well, they give each other breaks that the rest of us don't have, or they're just inherently smarter than the rest of us. He addresses all those things head on. It's very, very fascinating. But his first commandment is you have to believe in the dignity and morality of business, that this profession is a calling just as much as anything else is in life, public service or being a doctor or a minister or anything like that. And he substantiates that by describing and sharing information about how businesses create jobs, support families, build communities, build wealth. That this is a ministry. Our business is a ministry. And what I mean by that is we are helping other people. We are contributing to society. You don't just have to make your money and then go do good for society. The very act of making money, creating exchange, getting the money flowing is itself doing good. So the chapter goes into more detail on that. I'm just going to just read them off and then maybe one or two points of explanation. The second commandment, extend the network of your connectedness to many people. Geez, if I was to summarize that, I think it would be something like grow your sphere of influence. Anybody ever heard that before? He calls it extend the network of your connectedness to many people. We've talked recently on this call many times about how the business that we're in is essentially talking to people about real estate. But he talks in here about you need to get to know as many people below you in your station in life. These are be people who are just starting their career, perhaps young people, people just transitioning into your area of expertise. That's what he means by people below you, people who can't necessarily contribute to your success, but you can contribute to theirs. And then he talks about getting to know as many people above you, people who are further along on the path that you're traveling. They've got more experience, more expertise, more connections. And he just talks about build this great network of people because it is through people that wealth moves. Wealth moves through relationships. Business moves through connections. The person with the most friends wins. It really comes down to that simple. The more people who like you and trust you, the greater your odds of success. Third commandment, get to know yourself. And he makes the comment in the beginning that we need to get to know ourselves as well as other people know us. I love to tell my wife Mary, she doesn't believe this, but it's absolutely true, that I know her better than she knows herself, right? And that's true of all of us. We deceive ourselves about who we are, right? Because we tell ourselves stories about what we want to believe about ourselves. But the people who spend the most time with us, what do they have? The power of observation. They see what we really are because who we are is expressed in what we do. It's not the stories we tell ourselves on the inside. Who we are is how we behave. Our actions are who we are. And so he says we need to be able to step back and objectively look at ourselves, good, bad, and otherwise. Be very honest, be brutally honest about what our skill sets are, what our weaknesses are, what our propensities for deception are, self-deception, primarily, some of the stories we tell ourselves, to the extent that we can understand who we are, what our passions are, what we're willing to commit to, what we're not willing to do, to be able to recognize that and be honest about it and not set false activity standards or goals for ourselves that we have no chance of achieving because we're unwilling to do the work. Knowing that in advance can help us operate our lives more efficiently. Focus on those things that we are willing to do and that we can do well. That was number 3. Here's the fourth commandment: do not pursue perfection. And he talks a lot in this chapter about business itself. In the criticisms of business, it's bad for the environment, and the rich get richer, and the poor get poorer, and all of that. And he launches a very effective defense of business as a moral cause. It's not perfect. Our society is not perfect. But he quotes who's the rich guy out of Omaha, the Oracle of Omaha. I can never remember his name. Kevin said if I was a lip reader, I would be
Warren
better.
Buffett.
There you
Yeah,
go, Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett. Yeah. And he tells this story, and you'll find this fascinating. He said, if you could start from scratch and design an economic system that the whole world will be subject to, who prospers, who doesn't, what principles drive success, which ones don't. You had, the clay in your hands and could design any system that you wanted. Think about how exciting that would be. Okay. But then he said, here's the catch. Of the 9 billion people on earth, you don't get to choose which one you're going to be. That's going to be random selection. And so you could be rich or poor, famous or not, happy or not. So if knowing that it was just going to be random selection that determined your fate, what kind of system would you design? Wouldn't it be one to create ultimate fairness as close as we could get? There's no perfection. Don't pursue perfection. But as close as we could get to universal fairness, isn't that the system that you would choose to increase your odds of getting a fair shake? And then he goes on to say, that's what we have in this country. The combination of capitalism and democracy is the closest that any one of us could ever come to designing a perfect system. And it's not perfect. There are injustices and there are people who get left behind. But in terms of what's humanly possible, we've got it. And his point in all this is in your situation in life, things are not perfect, and people tell themselves stories about why they're not successful, why they're not doing better. Well, my spouse isn't supportive of me, or I didn't get this education, or I was a single mom at a young age and didn't get to, launch my career. All these stories and excuses we tell ourselves. And his point is imperfection is the lot of every person in life. Nobody has a perfect scenario. Even those that we think are built, born with a silver spoon in their mouth, sometimes that's what they have to overcome. The perception that they've gotten all the breaks, and that's why they've gotten where they are. Somebody is successful because they're beautiful or handsome or went to the right school or have the right parents. That can be held against them. You know, so she's so beautiful. That must be why she got the promotion. You know, so don't sit around pining for perfection in your world. Take action with what you have. Take the resources that you've been given, the opportunities that you've been given, and make the most of them. The fifth commandment: lead consistently and constantly. Be a leader. The rabbi, as you might expect, believes that Hebrew is the Lord's language, God's language, and therefore perfect. Okay, he makes this point several times in the book. And he says, in Hebrew, there is no word for leadership. It doesn't exist. And so, as a rabbi, he would say, therefore, leadership doesn't exist. If there's no word for it in the perfect language, then it doesn't really exist. There's names for rulers and kings and governors, but not for leadership. And then he goes into this, linguistic analysis where he says, here's the Hebrew concept of what leadership is. Leadership is simply having followers. That's what it is. If you look around and there are people trying to emulate you, trying to follow you, trying to be like you, that's what leadership is. And of course, to do that, you have to become a person that others want to be like. That's true in the productivity of your business, your success in business. It's true in the quality of your relationships and the number of your friendships and the influence that you have, the positive influence that you have. Do people want to be around you? That is leadership. So you don't necessarily need to go to school or read a book. You need to focus on becoming a person of value that people will be attracted to. That's his point there. The sixth commandment: constantly change the changeable while steadfastly clinging to the unchangeable. He doesn't quote St. Francis of Assisi here. Being a Catholic saint, I guess the Jewish rabbi is not going to quote from him, but you remember the Serenity Prayer? Lord, help me. I'm trying to see if I can get it right. Lord, help me to change the things that I can change, to accept the things that I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. Y'all heard that before? That was actually on a little plaque to the right of the front door of my house when I was growing up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I read it all the time. There's another plaque in that house that I remember. Lord, help me not to judge another man until I've walked a mile in his moccasins. And had a little Indian. Anyways, that's my childhood. Change the changeable. What can be changed can be improved. Focus on that. But there are some factors we tend to get distracted by that we cannot change. We cannot change interest rates. We can't change the economy. We can't change the market. We can't change who we are. So don't worry about those things. When people ask me all the time, Frank, what's going to happen with interest rates? Frank, what do you think about this market? And they're sometimes shocked when I say, actually, I don't think about it at all. I mean, obviously, I have to know what's going on. I have to be aware, but I don't spend time, you know, um, worrying, fretting over things that I cannot control. And that's kind of what the rabbi says here. Change the changeable. Don't waste time on the things you can't change. Also, as St. Francis told us. The seventh commandment: learn to foretell the future. I really like this chapter. And what he's doing, he's telling us to take responsibility for what is to come. In other words, don't be blind to the path that you're on. The direction that you're heading is taking you somewhere. Don't pretend that it's unknowable, because the trajectory that you're on is going to land you somewhere. You need to be honest with yourself to say, if I continue doing the things I'm doing right now, what is going to be the result? That's what he means by foretelling the future, not some crystal ball where I predict so and so is going to be the president of Peru in 2046. No, it's where are you going to be in 30 days, in 90 days, in a year, in 5 years, if you don't change the path that you're on. And it may be that you like where you're going to land, that you're doing the right things, may not be seeing the results, but you know by experience and the experience of others, it's going to get you where you want to go. Or if you can project that to the future and say, that's not really what I intend, then you need to change your behavior now. Okay, does that make sense? That's one of my favorite chapters. Okay, we're almost through. The 8th commandment, know your money. Know your money. And here he's just talking about basic financial intelligence. Know how money works. Know the cost of money. If you have to borrow money, I talked to a lender yesterday who was loaning money at 16.99%. Wow. I mean, if you need money and that's the only money you can get, then take it. But realize the incredible cost that you're paying. You're going to be paying twice the value of that money within just a few years at an interest rate like that. We need to understand these things. We also need to understand the power of compounding interest when money is in our favor, and the value of money sitting in a savings account that pays 0.9% interest versus in the stock market, which over your lifetime will average 9 to 10%, actually 10 times greater than leaving that money there. And then he shared some wisdom from another ancient rabbi. This is a rabbi from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. I forget his name. But he said we should always keep our money in 3 places. A third of it should be in real estate. And we like that, don't we? Right? And he made the point, God can make more people, but he's not making more real estate. Okay, keep a third of it in real estate. Keep a third of it in merchandise, which I presume he was talking to business people, merchants who needed inventory. But keep a third of it in tangible goods. Maybe that's what we could say. Tangible goods. And this could be your house, your car, the things that you need to support your life and your business. And then keep a third of it accessible. We would call that liquid. Keep a third of it available to you in a crisis, and maybe not your own crisis. Maybe it's a crisis for somebody else that you can help out with. And I'll tell you another example of why keeping a portion, I won't say it's necessarily a third, but keeping a portion of your assets liquid is to take advantage of opportunities. I was in Florida during the last great real estate crash. And I got to tell you, when values went, a $250,000 home was suddenly worth $80,000. You know who was happy about that? People with cash. They scooped those things up like donuts. I remember my mother did the same thing in Houston in the 80s when they went through one of their cyclical energy busts. And she bought all kinds of townhomes and condos, all for less than $20,000 a piece. In fact, probably just 2 years ago, I helped her sell the last one of those. But for years, she paid $16,000 for this last one that I helped sell for her, and she collected $700 a month in rent on that little condo for 25, 30 years. The return was astounding. So keep your money in 3 different places: real estate, tangible goods, and then keep it liquid. 9th commandment, act rich. Give away 10% of your after-tax income. to charitable causes. And he goes into great detail to talk about the advantages to you, to your own well-being, to your own view of yourself, and to your business by being involved in charitable giving. And he was doing it from a naturalistic perspective. The people that you're going to meet, the people who participate in giving to charity sometimes have resources and access that can benefit your business. You want to run with that crowd. He didn't really talk about the spiritual aspect, but certainly that has to play a role as well. Remember what Jesus said, give and it will be given to you. That wasn't Jesus who said that. Was that Malachi? Somebody, you Bible scholars, correct me. Give and it shall be given to you, pressed down, shaken, running over. I think that's in Malachi. That's the spiritual principle. Okay. And by the way, I'm going to pause here for a shameless commercial. If you didn't get an email from me this morning, you're going to get one later today about a charity golf tournament that Kevin Miney and Ryan Barker are hosting on May 22nd. It's going to be at the Augusta Pines Golf Course, and it is going to be for the benefit of Mission Abim, which is a children's home, an orphanage that Mary and I helped start last summer with 2 or 3 other partners. So it's less than a year old. We have 50 kids in a rented house, very crowded in the rented house. But it's on 2 acres, and we've put playground equipment so they can run and play. We've built showers and latrines for them. We have tents up for school so they can get educated. But we've purchased 20 acres of land for them out in the country. We're fencing it right now. We're drilling a borehole to put a well in, but we need money to build the dormitories. And we can put 100 kids, 100 boys in one and 100 girls in the other. They each have 2 wings, so 50, 50, 50, 50, with house mom and dad living in the middle. But we need money to build that. And so that's what this charity golf tournament is all about. So it doesn't matter if you play golf or not. If your heart is moved and you want to help big or small, go to our website, forhisgloryministries.net. I'll send the link out if you don't have it already, forhisgloryministries.net. And then just click on the More tab in the upper right-hand corner. It'll take you right to the golf tournament with all the opportunities for sponsorship. We need people to play golf. We need people to sponsor. We need people to donate a weekend at my Galveston condo or something of value that we could auction off to raise money. If you are an artist and you paint or you do ceramics or you have access to that kind of thing, anything that others will find value in, we're going to take those donations and auction them off. So there we go. Here's number 10, the 10th commandment. This one resonates with me. Never retire. Never retire. And again, he cites the Hebrew language, which has no word for retirement. And then he goes and he cites real life examples. And I'll tell you one of them. It's a great story. This was a guy 78 years old driving a forklift at Ford Motor Company. He had been there like 48 years. And he tells this story about this guy. And he says that people, when they hear this story, they have one of 2 reactions. They either say, oh, that's awesome. 78 years old, still vibrant, full of life, working, contributing. And the other reaction is, well, poor guy, 78 years old and still driving a forklift. He ought to be on a golf course somewhere. He ought to be watching soap operas all day, sitting up in his easy chair. And he said, your reaction to that story, which camp you fall into, is going to determine what happens to you in your latter years. We are designed to be productive. And he cites again the Hebrew language, which has no word for retirement, no word for leadership, no word for retirement. As long as we have strength and the mental capacity, we should be contributing. We should be productive. That doesn't mean we have to do the same thing. It doesn't mean we have to do it for money. We can volunteer our time to serve others. We could change our career path. We can go back to school and learn new things. We could become a scholar in ancient antiquities. It is not dictating what it is, but the point is, if you slow down, if you decide to go fishing, you have probably just set yourself up for an early heart attack. If we don't refire, and the statistics prove this. We have to stay engaged. And the rabbi points out something He says, if you set a retirement date, if you're like, okay, I got 12 years to go, I got 18 years, I got 30 years to go, and then I can retire. Then I can cash out of all this and just go sit on the beach. He said, what you do is you program your career for inefficiency, because you're just thinking about, when am I getting out? When am I getting out? Rather than, well, I'm in this for life. I'm going to be doing something for life. So I need to keep sharpening my skills. I need to increase my efficiency. I need to grow my network. So if you don't have a terminal point in mind, you can be my age, 62, and think, well, both my parents are in their 80s with relatively good health. They both had health scares, but they're both mobile and alert and alive and active. It's not, I don't have 3 more years, age 65. Based on my parents' experience, I've got a good 20 years ahead of me, 25 years ahead of me, and they're not done yet. They're still going. You see what I'm saying? Stretch the horizon, that I'm going to contribute and be active and productive. Those are the 10 commandments found in Thou Shalt Prosper. And I greatly encourage you. Obviously, I skimmed the tops. He's got all the stories and the meat in there, but that would be a good one to dive into. Okay, there we go. There's my rant for the day. Let's talk about what's going on in your business that you have questions about or you need help with. A tricky situation you're involved in, a contract question, maybe just some observation or evaluation of what you're doing in your business right now. What's on your mind?
So Frank, I have a question.
Yes,
So
Rochelle.
last week we talked about holy and perfect agent
Yes.
and striving for perfection. And then,
Yes.
so what's the difference between the do not pursue perfection and
Yes.
striving for perfection?
Oh, you're just going to call me out, aren't you, Rochelle? So
Just curious. It just
I
jumped
love it.
out at me.
So last week we talked about be perfect, even as I am perfect. And we talked about the fact that that was a standard to go for. We're not to accept mediocrity. Even if perfection is impossible, we are to strive for it. And if we shoot for the moon and fall short, we land among the stars. That was the point of last week. The point of today is, don't be what's the word? Neutralized by the inability to attain perfection. Don't think, well, because I can't get it all right, I shouldn't do anything. Does that make sense? We're just coming at it from a
Yeah.
different perspective. And he talks about in the book that, business is not perfect. Nobody's situation is perfect. Don't wait for external factors to be perfect before you take action. Just acknowledge that none of us are in a perfect situation. None of us have it all together, and press ahead anyway. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? So we're
Yep.
kind of coming at
Yep.
perfection from two different perspectives. One is we're seeking to go as high and as far and as good as we can, but we're not allowing ourselves to be paralyzed. That's the word I was looking for, to be paralyzed by the fact that our circumstances are not perfect. Okay?
Okay.
All
Yep.
right.
Thank you.
Great question, Rochelle. Love it when people call me out. All right. Who else? What's going on? Hey, can I share something else with you before I forget? Next Thursday, a week from today, weather permitting, we're going to have a picnic here at the office. We're just going to get everybody, it's going to be at noon over the lunch hour. It's going to be a little potluck. We're going to fire up the grill. We'll have hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken breasts, things like that. We want you all to bring side dishes and desserts. And we're also going to do a little open house here in the office. Many of you have not been into our new staff suite. Boy, that when you walk in, it looks like garage sale. You'll think, why do you call it a suite? But we're getting there. That's our aspiration. We're not letting our lack of perfection hinder us. We're shooting for it. But we're going to host a little open house and show you around our new digs, and then give everybody a chance to kind of sneak through the building and see the progress. If you haven't been up here, the last 2 or 3 days, it is amazing. They're building a bridge out here from the deck to the parking lot. It'll be finished today, and all kinds of cool things in the main training room. that they've just put up the last 48 hours. So anyways, that's next Thursday, a week from today at noon. Okay. All right. Dun, dun, dun. Go ahead, Kathy. We see that.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I just wanted to share that my listing should be closing on the 30th. I'm
Oh,
excited.
nice. Nice.
And I also been working with a potential buyer, but now they have been pre-approved, so it's going to go shopping for homes. So I'm excited about that too.
Okay. So one closing coming up and another
Mhm.
active buyer coming up. So well done.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
Kathy, I
you.
have to ask you the question. You knew it was coming. Where
Oh,
did your
oh
seller
gosh.
come from?
Sphere of Influence.
Okay. And where did your buyer come
And
from?
he's the same thing.
Okay, there we go. Is
Yep.
anybody
So it worked.
surprised by that answer?
Nope.
Something about enlarging the network of our connectedness, something that the rabbi
Yep.
said, grow your sphere. Okay, love it,
That
love it,
is
love it.
true.
All right, anybody else want to jump in? Is anybody hosting
Um,
open houses? Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
so, Kathy, congratulations. And did you have any questions on that, or you were just saying that's what's coming up? That's great to hear. Did you have questions on it, or just saying?
I was just letting everyone know. But
Oh,
if I
that's
have any questions, of course I'm gonna ask. So, but right
right.
now I think
Somebody
I got
presented
it.
yesterday as well. Were you there for the presentations yesterday?
Yes, I did. I conquered my fear yesterday by public speaking. I was dying in the
No,
inside, but I
no.
did it.
I'm sorry I missed it, but that sounds wonderful. Good for you. Um,
Thank you.
that's a good thing to hear.
Thank you so much.
All righty.
Frank, you jumped off the book. Let me say this. Excellent, excellent book. Thank you for sharing those concepts with us. And uh, I'll make two comments. One, I too, I agree with everything he said. I've often said myself that here in the United States, we have the absolute worst political and economic system in all the world, except for all the others. In other words, yes, ours is imperfect, but they had a system of property rights back in the ancient days. You became king and you had property rights, and short of that, it was Christianity and some of these things that came that gave people the idea of personal dignity and personal property and stuff like this. There's so much that we're standing upon, and and that's all good. The other one gets to the perfection, and we see this in marriages and relationships too. It's a false notion that somehow uh, God made me perfect and there's exactly one perfect spouse out there, and my choice in life is to run around the world and try and find this one perfect, the two puzzle
Yes.
pieces that go together perfectly. That, I'm sorry, is a bunch of hockey ho. Um, Me being a good husband is a whole lot more about me loving and sacrificing and becoming the better husband than it is somehow expecting my wife to be perfect and my perfect soulmate. And
Yes.
it's an insidious notion because people in their life, they wake up one day and say, "Oh my God, this person isn't perfect. I guess I need to go in search of my
Right.
perfect soulmate."
Right.
No,
Yeah.
so I think that the word perfection here is that we are called to strive our best, but we have two sayings: some beats none, and done beats perfect.
There you
Um,
go.
and you can't allow this sense of perfection. If I can't be perfect, I'm not going to start, or I can't do that. That's not it. So this seemed like good practical advice. Thanks for sharing
Okay. Good stuff, Kevin. Got a little marriage advice along the way there.
it. Well, you got to keep the trains on the track. It's always better to keep them on the track than to deal with derailments. Yes.
I've always said that, romance is God's way of tricking us, into marriage, that we fall in love thinking that it's to fulfill all of our needs. And in fact, marriage is this crucible which forces us into close interaction with another human being, which brings out all of our worst qualities, and exposes all of our selfishness. And that's God's intention, to show us what's really inside, so that we, if we are so inclined, can work on that and become
Yes.
better people. So
Marriage is
that's what I think the
crucible.
intent of marriage is.
I,
Make us
Marriage is
better.
a crucible, and love is a verb. So years ago, I used to have a client, small world, but my client was in New York City, and the name of the company was the Dead Sea Bromine Group. The Dead Sea Bromine Group was this Israeli corporation whose franchise was to mine and bring forward products from the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea, as you all know, is source of the best salt world, but it's not just salt, it's cosmetics. And we also use them in what's called brominated compounds. Bromination works to fireproof. So your draperies and
Yes.
your fabrics are made fireproof. Anyway, I go back and forth to New York and weekly, and there was a Broadway play, and it was "I love you, you're perfect, now change." And that shows you God has a good sense of humor. He makes opposites attract, and then you spend your life trying to change the
that's
very habits that attracted you.
that's hilarious. And by the way, small world, I have a very good friend who's an engineer who spends half his year on the shores of the Dead Sea mining bromine. Runs a factory that extracts it on the Jordanian side. He said the Israelis got their own factories on the other side doing the same thing, their own chemical plants. Okay, guys. Clock on the wall says it's about time to move on. I appreciate y'all joining me, especially allowing me to skim the tops of Thou Shalt Prosper. I'll end with another ringing endorsement of that book. You'll find it enlightening, of course, but a very easy read, and so many good stories that I think you'll enjoy reading it as well. Um, all right. Thank y'all
Thank you,
so
Frank.
Thank-
much.
I have a question,
Yes.
Frank,
Go
before we
ahead,
go.
Tom.
On my
Yes.
schedule on Wednesday, it's probably everybody, it says Agent Marketing Mastermind. Is that open for
Yes.
everybody? Okay.
It is. We put it on the calendar because it is open for everyone. I'll tell you, full disclosure, it was started by Cheryl Vecchio and Jessica Jones for their revenue share group. They've got 10 or 12 agents, but I clarified with them just a couple days ago that it is truly open. Everyone is welcome to come. It's not just an open-ended mastermind. You're probably going to get some of what they feel like is important that their agents need to understand. But yes, it is open to everybody. You're welcome to come and learn and contribute.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Good to see you guys. God bless everyone. Call me if I can help you in any way.